Good evening and welcome to our COVID-19 update. I'm Ladi Akiri Duluale. Here are the highlights at this hour. Joy unbound as Muslim faithful attend congregational Jumat prayer in Lagos after more than 4 months of closure. More states prepare to open schools for exit classes on Monday. And Africa's COVID-19 caseload surpasses the 1 million mark. South Africa accounts for more than 50% of that number. We begin in the nation's commercial capital, Lagos, where Muslims today observed the weekly Jumat prayers in mosques following the reopening of worship centers in the state after more than 4 months of closure. The state government had suspended any form of crowd and gathering of people in worship centers as a measure to control the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. But the suspension of the order allowing for 50% capacity came as a relief to the Muslim faithful.
After 5 months. What I saw here today, the compliance is highly satisfactory. The capacity of this mosque is like 2,000 worshippers, but today they only they accommodated only 500 worshippers. So they were able to demonstrate enough, distance from one worshipper to the other, and they are all in face masks. So the compliance is very much okay. But the mosque will not accommodate more than what the protocol specified. So if you couldn't meet up with the figure, then you go home or your office and observe it personally on your own. And that protocol is very important. We should follow them strictly, so that if we are able to get a good compliance of all these protocols, then that will now lead to us opening of other level of prayers.
Anything that keeps us alive and that keeps us safe is in compliance with Islamic teachings. So it has nothing to do with our religion. It doesn't affect it. This is unusual time. And unusual time don't last forever. And then when everything we are able to get the solution to what is happening, we go back to the basics.
The Lagos Secretariat Mosque comes alive again with activities after more than 4 months of silence. With worship centers now giving the nod to hold gatherings, Muslim faithful gather for the Friday congregational prayer with strict observance to prescribed protocols. The mosque could only accommodate about 500 people against a full capacity of more than 2,000 worshippers. Observing prayers together with other faithful is a great feeling for this worshipper.
I feel happy. I feel delighted that I'm one of those that observed today's Jumat. It's as if it's been years since we prayed the last one. We had to stay away from this mosque where we pray virtually every day of the week, except for weekends. But alhamdulillah, today being the first Jumat after the lockdown, I am so happy to be one of those that pray today. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will flatten the curve, the COVID-19 curve for us, so that we can witness many more.
Clerics and worshippers are also positive about this development and seem to have already adjusted to the new norm.
For Muslim now, it's only the Jumat prayer. We still have the 5 times prayer that we normally do on a daily basis, and they are all obligatory prayer. So if we are able to comply very well on this Jumat, definitely that can work for us to open other level of prayers.
Islam also understands the need for us to be healthy and the need for us to be alive. So any protocol that guarantees physical well-being and then keeps us alive will be should be adhered to, and that's the Islam.
Earlier, churches and mosques were disinfected ahead of the reopening of worship centers. The local authorities doing this to complement the effort of the Lagos State government in ensuring that places of worship are safe. For now, the Lagos State government says regular gatherings will be permitted to hold in the worship centers. Vigils and other services are on hold for now. The state government also advised that senior citizens aged 65 years and above should not attend these places of worship.
We'll have more on the reopening of religious places of worship later on in the program. But for now, let's go to Niger State, where only schools that have gone through readiness checks and are certified to be prepared to be allowed to reopen for exit classes will be allowed to do so. At a one-day sensitization exercise on the roles of public and private school administrators ahead of students' resumption next week, the state government also says all teachers and students resuming must subject themselves to rigorous checks before they are admitted into the school's arena. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, has that detail.
Niger State currently has a total of 226 confirmed positive cases of COVID-19 spread across 13 local government areas of the state. 7 deaths have so far been recorded. Now, the state government is attempting to reopen schools come 10th of August 2020. But a workshop to sensitize all principals and administrators of both public and private schools have been organized. The Niger State Commissioner of Education, during her remarks, said that the objective for the workshop is to ensure that schools are safe for students and teachers to reopen.
The Ministry of Education will continue to track the event of reopening as they unfold. It is expected that we work as a team and make a success for the whole process.
But the chairman of the schools reopening committee did emphasize the fact that only schools that have been checked and certified to be prepared will be allowed to reopen on Monday.
If you are qualified to reopen, there will be continuous compliance monitoring. That any time an officer will come. And when he comes, he will determine whether continuously or at the point of your visitation, you have fulfilled all the requirements.
For some of the participants, the commitment of the state government to this reopening is very important.
The program is timely, it's welcome, and it's a welcome idea because it's come at the right time when schools are to be closed, to be opened. And it's an opportunity for all principals and administrators to be acquainted with the NCDC guidance so that we can effectively open our school and make our school safe.
297 schools in total are expected to reopen for exit classes come on Monday the 10th of August 2020. The Ministry of Education is optimistic that with this sensitization workshop, the safety of students and teachers will be guaranteed. From the Justice Idris Lego Kutigi International Conference Center, Mina, Emperor Simon for COVID-19 updates.
Thank you very much, Simon. Returning to the issue of religious places of worship, some of those places of worship in Lagos have opted out of the resumption date after the Lagos State government gave the nod for worship centers to resume congregational worship this weekend. For those who will be resuming, though, several measures are currently being put in place to align with COVID-19 safety protocols as prescribed by the state and federal governments. The preparations have brought about some changes to the manner of worship, which the clerics say will not necessarily affect their communion with God.
How else can you keep faith without some steps in demonstrating your belief? Recently, the Lagos State governor gave the nod for worship centers to resume congregational worship, and there's nothing stopping these folks.
From Friday, the 7th of August, for our Muslim worshippers, and on Sunday, the 9th, of August for our Christian worshippers.
Yes, it's been a while, but despite protocols that will accompany the resumption of worship, the excitement to resume is more than enough relief. Foot to foot, shoulder to shoulder is the familiar posture when praying in the mosque. That will change. Distance will be maintained, no mats, and in addition to procedural washing of feet and face called ablution, hand washing will be required, and no cars parked in the premises, only pedestrian walkway.
We have to observe the social distancing. This is not going to affect our prayers. If you look at the mosque has been marked so that there will be some level of distance, some meters between each worshipper.
Oh, my soul, praise him, for he is thy health and salvation.
In a few days, barring any changes, the speakers at this cathedral will blare with sounds of hymns and psalms as worship resumes at the Cathedral of Christ. To parishioners, it's been 4 months plus.
The parishioners, they are excited that the physical fellowship will resume, and we are warming up to gather again.
Our Lady of Perpetual Help is also ready, protocols in place, hand washing points, no cars will be allowed also in the compound. From the 2,000 average capacity, it will sit less than 50%.
When it comes to health, it affects everyone. It's not about an individual or a particular church or the mosque. It's about everyone. And this is something that is not limited to Nigeria. It's also something that's going across the world.
You come into the sani tunnel and then you get sanitized.
Pastor Fasheru and the KICC family has been experimenting and fixing mechanisms of safety from the blast of the first whistle. It can only get better.
Have the team called the meters and greeters. Those ones are going to be by the staircase. As people come in from the car park, they are going to be the ones to receive them from a distance, of course. Just to celebrate them as they come in. And at the same time, they have an eye checking out to make sure that everybody that is coming into the auditorium have their face mask on.
Incidentally, some worship centers have voluntarily opted out of the scheduled opening date. Reasons vary for each of those leadership, but there's no stopping those on the first flight come Friday this week and Sunday 2 days after. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
Thank you, Olu. Let's talk now to Ustaz Saeed Salman, who is the Missionary Guild of Muslim Professionals. He joins us via Skype from the Bariga area of Lagos. Good evening, Ustaz Salman. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Now, some of the worship centers, both Islamic and Christian, have opted out of reopening this weekend. Perhaps they will do, some of them will do that in the coming weeks. But from what you have heard, the reports that you have, what is the situation or what happened today, given the excitement that attended the fact that Muslims were able to go to the congregational prayers, Friday prayers, for the first time in quite a while?
Thank you for having me tonight. Firstly, I will start by saying that there is mixed feelings in the sense that some were happy with the development and some in a way were not really happy about the development. The reason being that this COVID-19, we cannot boast of the fact that it's no more on the land. But the government deemed it fit that we can't continue sitting at home. We need to communicate with our Creator. So let's open the mosque, let's open the churches. But if we want to do this, there are some precautions we must abide by. For those who are able to meet up with the conditions, they started observing Juma today. But some mosques today, they didn't go for the Juma because they were unable to meet up with the conditions set down by the government. And also in Islam, this is an abnormal situation. In this abnormal situation, we must consider the fact that life is of high paramount. And it has been established that this illness, the COVID-19, is contagious. So all the precautionary measures, if they are unable to meet up with it, so some of them declare that we are not starting any Juma today, but some who are able to meet up with the condition, they have started observing their own Juma today, expecting that after some weeks or months, they will be allowed also to be observing the 5 daily prayer, because Juma alone, it is not the act of worship we have in Islam. Rather, it's just weekly salat, weekly fellowship. So there are other daily fellowship which they are expecting that if they are able to abide by the conditions given, so they will be allowed to continue observing this the 5 daily prayer. So mixed feelings. So some were happy and some were not happy about the situation.
Well, one of the group that may appear, well, on the face of it, not to be too happy about it, are the elderly and the very young ones who could previously attend this prayers, both the daily ones and then the 5-day congregational prayers. But now we have been told that if they are 60 or above, and if they are very young children and so on, because they can't be controlled in terms of movement, they shouldn't be allowed to go. How is that playing out?
Firstly, that condition is of high paramount. Even I want to say that some who have not been up to 60 or 65, say 55, they are suffering from 1 or 2 terminal ailments. So they are not expected to come. So in this situation, we are all expected to abide by this condition, because in Islam, 1/10 of Islam could inflict harm on you. Islam says, protect yourself from that very thing. So the agents, that is the senior citizen, they shouldn't feel cheated. They shouldn't feel unhappy about this, because this is part and parcel of our religion. You don't say because you want to go and worship Allah, you don't inflict harm on yourself. Because if you die at the end of the day, there won't be any opportunity to worship Allah again. But as for the children, the children may be falling at times, they will not be able to curtail them. So in that instance, they are expected to stay indoor to observe the prayer. We have been observing the prayer, say 4 months ago in our respective homes. I would believe that it will be accepted by our Creator. By not coming to the mosque in this short period, that should not cause any alarm for the senior citizen and the younger ones.
The other thing that, reading the background that one had, that people had expressed some level of apprehension about, is the whole idea of the preparation for the prayers. Prior to now, people would come to the mosque and they'd do the washing of hands and feet. But because of this health situation, they've been asked to do that from home in many cases, and that if you're going to come to the mosque to do it, you come with your own supply of the equipment needed, and then, of course, you can then use water. How is that playing out?
Some, for the fact that they are able to put all these in places of worship, so they said we can go. That is, you can start observing Salat today. But some were unable to do it. They declared to their foes that we are unable to fulfill this condition. As a result of that, please, let's stay indoor till we'll be able to provide for these materials to ensure the safety of our foes. So for those who are unable to do that, they didn't allow the people to come to the mosque, and they didn't tell them that they should come. For example, in my own area, I can point to 1 or 2 mosques who are able to do this. Immediately you enter into the mosque, you'll be asked to register your name. Then you go to the ablution center. Before you start the ablution, you wash your hands. Then after the ablution and you observe your salah, before you leave that place, you put on you sanitize your hands. So for those who are able to do that, they allow the fold, that is the group, to come to the mosque, the congregation to come to the mosque and observe the salah without feeling any form of being cheated or slighted in that case.
Indeed. Thank you so very much, Ustaz Saeed Salman, Missionary Guild of Muslim Professionals. And we wish you and the congregation the very best of luck in the days and weeks ahead. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. You're welcome.
We'll take a break at this point. When we come back, we'll still be examining this issue of the reopening of religious places of worship, this time from another perspective. Please stay on with us. Thanks for staying tuned. Welcome back to our COVID-19 update. Within the last 24 hours, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, the NCDC, announced 354 new infections recorded in 16 states and the Federal Capital Territory. The FCT recorded the highest number of infections at 78. Lagos had 76. Kaduna 23, Bonny 19, Oyo 18, Nasarawa and Rivers 17 each, Delta and Kwara 16 and 15, Akwa Ibom 13, Edo and Ogun 12 each, Plateau 11, Kano 9, Bauchi, Borno and Ekiti 6 each. Nigeria currently has a total of 11,884 active cases of COVID-19 on admission across the country. This is about 26.2% of the latest total, which is 45,244 confirmed cases of the virus. Meanwhile, the total number of fatalities has gone up to 930. 3 deaths were recorded in the last 24 hours in Akwa Ibom, Imo, and Oyo states. Let's talk more now about the reopening of religious institutions, particularly in the nation's commercial capital, Lagos. We're being joined in the studio by Reverend Abraham Sam Ayedogmo, who is the Senior Apostolic Leader, Realm of Glory International Churches. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ladi. Pleased to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Let me begin straight away. What do you make of the preparations towards Sunday? I mean, for those who are ready, this Sunday is going to be it.
Yeah, of course, we're more than prepared because you remember there was the first attempt to reopen religious centers. That was June the 21st. For our Muslim friends, it was supposed to be June 19.
That's right.
And we were all ready. We've taken all the measures and gotten all the protocol in place and the process of washing hands and sanitizer, and our ushers were already, the social distancing within the hall. So we were prepared, we were on top of the game. And then the state government had the review. And I think it was courageous. They were not sentimental when they realized that the trend, we haven't flattened the curve and it wasn't advisable to go ahead. So we just put things on hold. And then the gap we had between June 21st and now had only helped us to update our game. I mean, so we're very much prepared and we're excited to get together.
Well, things are not going to be exactly the same as they were prior to COVID.
Absolutely.
And there was some of what led to the delay was that some of the leaders of the Christian faith had divergent opinions on the whole idea behind opening and the various measures that needed to be put in place. Some of them said, look, there's no point in reopening if we're not going to be able to fellowship physically and all of that. What did you make of that debate? And now that the reopening is taking place and insistence is on those measures, how do you think this is going to fare?
Yeah, I think the divergent opinion among Christian leaders is one of the beauty of Christianity. It's like the legal practice. You barely can have 2 lawyers in a room agreeing, on the same issue and from their different perspective. I think it shows us that the Christian faith is not autocratic, it's not despotic. We have this democratic value where there is freedom for you to view things from your own point of view and take a position. And so I would believe that the Christian leaders that are saying, hey, we shouldn't reopen because it's not safe, we're concerned about, the well-being of our people. I mean, you cannot fault them. You can't fault that, and you can't blame them for that. But there are some of us that, feel that every challenge is an opportunity to bring out our best. I learned in the Chinese culture that the same word for adversity, you have the same symbol for opportunity, that when there are challenges and adversity, you see it as an opportunity to improve yourself. So I don't see it as a conflict. These are just divergent opinions. And those things still hold. Up till now, I'm sure there are Christian leaders that are saying, wait a minute, we don't want to reopen yet because of some reasons. But majority would say, considering the psychological effects of not just social distancing, but the physical distancing of worshippers, which has been a key factor in ensuring, psychological health for many people, and invariably that was taken away. We are more than ready to come together. Some of us just feel that it is time, it's necessary. If we don't do it now, we may begin to have a backlash. There's a flip side of it that's not going to be positive. We may be having people breaking down emotionally and psychologically. It is nothing to do with spirituality. It has nothing to do with God answering us, God not being present with you in your house, and you not being able to pray along with your family. But there is an aspect of the Christian fellowship established in the Bible that says, iron sharpens iron. A man's face sharpens the countenance of his friend. So I've been seeing you on the screen, and I got some boots just seeing you live now. And so I'm like fired up. So you can imagine, some of us haven't met for 5 months. It's not just about the spirituality and what you want to call anointing, but there's something that happens when we see ourselves face to face. It's part of the Christian faith. But people that feel we should still wait and, watch the trend and let's get our act together, I think it's good for them. So there is no conflict as far as I'm concerned.
Given the protocols themselves, anyway, some of the religious places of worship, particularly the ones in the urban centers,
yes,
may be able to comply. They may be able to find the resources, and members may be able to contribute to allow this. But for those who have large numbers of branches in not so obvious places where TV cameras may not be going constantly and so on, do you harbor any fears that those places may fall slightly below the standard and therefore may then give the bigger ones who are able to do this properly a bad name, because everybody would then say, oh, the churches or the institutions, they told them before and now look at what is going on?
Yeah, I think it's paradoxical, and that question is an intelligent question, I must admit. The point is that people in those rural places seems unperturbed about the whole COVID-19 thing. They feel like it's a city thing, it's for the elites, and we're good here. We're in touch with people in the countryside, and we've had people maybe going for one function or the other, and they will tell you, you Lagos people, you city people, this is your problem. We don't have problem here. The only problem we have in the village is just hunger. Just help us to feed, and hunger virus is worse than coronavirus and all of that. So they're not really concerned. You are correct. Some of them, the churches there, cannot meet the protocol and get all of this requirement and the regulation in place. I'm in touch with some African country like Gabon and Liberia, and one of the pastors was saying to me, we can't even get the temperature measurement equipment. We can't get sanitizer. We don't have the money. So you have that problem. But they're also saying, but we're fine. We don't even have anybody here having the problem. So what we advise them is that do what you can and don't say it doesn't exist. Faith does not contradict or counteract wisdom. The God of wisdom is the God of faith. So it will be foolhardy. There will be no wisdom for you to say, there's nothing like that, or we believe God, nothing's going to happen. And then, you just like playing to the hand of the devil, if I would say it that way. And but we would say, whatever you can do, maybe big churches also in the cities can come to the aid of churches in those countryside. Whatever can be done, we should be our brother's keeper. But I'm convinced that staying away from churches since March is long enough. And whatever we can do to get ourselves back together and just allow, the vibe that is created, the energy that is created, and whatever is transmitted, we believe there's some things that happen that invariably help both family individuals and even help people to perform better in their places of work. I feel we should get it together and help who needs to be helped, and maybe government also, whatever they can do to help some religious places of worship who cannot make the provision, should be done. But this is part of progress. We have to progress. We can't remain locked down, and we can't go backward.
Reverend Abraham Sama Edogbon, thank you so much for coming in this evening and for those words of encouragement. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing people out on Sunday.
Absolutely.
And we'll watch how it goes.
It's
Thank you so much for
exciting.
coming.
Thank you, Ladi. You guys are doing a great job. You've been very helpful.
Thank you.
Enlightening, educative, and helping the whole masses.
Thank you
God bless
very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
The Kaduna State government has flagged off the beneficiaries' enrollment into the federal government special public works program across its 23 local government areas. The Special Public Works Program is a post-COVID-19 poverty alleviation program approved by the President, under which 1,000 persons are to be employed from each of the 774 local government areas of the country. The Kaduna State Commissioner for Human Services and Social Development, Hafsat Baba, says the program, which will involve 23,000 people, is designed to specially address unemployment gaps caused by the pandemic.
Ahead of the commencement of the post-COVID-19 poverty alleviation program starting on October the 1st, the Kaduna State government has flagged off the registration of beneficiaries across the 23 local government areas in the state, starting with Giwa local government area. The process entails officials from the Selection Committee and the National Directorate of Employment, NDE, moving from house to house to identify and register beneficiaries. The State Commissioner for Human Services and Social Development and the chairperson of the Implementation Committee say so far 13% of the slots have been allocated to politicians, including governors and senators, while 87% of the remaining slots are to be given to people through a random selection process by the State Selection Committee.
We are really concentrating more even on the youth because of the rate of unemployment. So we believe these 3 months will engage them, and then it will also provide a data for us in Kaduna State to work with. So I believe that this is a great opportunity for us. And we are not also forgetting the allocation for the political office holders.
In Giwa, 100 farmers have been enrolled into the program, with the state coordinator of the NDE and the beneficiary described as transparent.
My advice to the participants is for them to do this work effectively, and also when they are paid the money, let them use that money judiciously.
It's a way round where a small little effort can boost the agriculture. By the little celebration that the government is trying to do now, it can increase the capacity. More especially the capacity building is paramount important, more especially we here in the rural area. And thank God the program is being launched here in the rural area. As you see, Patika is not the local government capital, but a district office where you see a typical rural man coming out from his farm to register.
The 1,000 persons to be recruited per local government will be engaged by the federal government for a period of 3 months, starting from October to December. And they are expected to carry out public works that are peculiar to the local government areas.
Let's take a further look at the state of preparedness for the reopening of worship centers as well as schools, which is ongoing. More schools will reopen on Monday. And joining us is a field epidemiologist who is also the Secretary General of the Association of Public Health Physicians of Nigeria in the River State chapter, Dr. Iwan Orang. Dr. Orang joins us via Skype from Port Harcourt. Good evening, Dr. Orang. Thank you for your time. Welcome to the program this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me, sir.
Let me start with where you are, Port Harcourt and River State. We've been hearing, of course, over the last couple of months about some very serious decisions taken by the state government to try to contain the spread. How is that going? How is the fight against COVID-19 going in River State at the moment?
Well, the fight against COVID-19 is going very well in River State, and all hands are on deck as it stands, and things are actually going on. The governor has not rested on his horse and has made sure that every activity, every knocks, every area that need to be touched are actually touched, and things are actually going on. But remember, River State is a state, not a country of its own. So whatever happens in Nigeria have a role in affecting what happens in the state. But I think the activities are going on quite well and as planned.
Let me move to the worship centers. This has been extremely controversial because it has involved emotions of people, the willingness and people wanting to go out and fellowship with others. But epidemiologists like yourselves and other medical personnel had been warning that this could be a problem. Are you satisfied now that at various levels, many of these institutions are now reopening, that things are a bit better and that it is not as big a problem as it could be a while back?
Well, the basic truth is that Nigerians are religious, and because Nigerians are religious, certain things need to actually happen before you can really beat your chest and say,
we seem to have a little bit of a difficulty with Dr. Iwang there. I hope we will try to get him back. But while we wait for that, let us go to outside our shores. Okay, I understand that he is back. So, Dr. Orang, please continue with what you were saying, that we needed to remember that.
Yes, Nigerians are religious and extremely religious, and certain things have to be done for us to be sure that we could beat our chest and say that we are ready to open our religious centers. Number one thing is, are Nigerians ready to keep to the rules and the guidelines that are stipulated by NCDC, the WHO, and even the state government in Rivers State? Here we are. Are Nigerians ready to ensure that they wear the nose masks, keep to say that safe distance of at least 2 meters distance between each person in all these religious centers? The euphoria of coming together, coming to worship, not being in worship, does not really underscore the fact that COVID-19 is around. So if you allow people to gather, it means that we are going to have a higher amount of cases that have been reported, though that is another case for another discussion. But I think it's something we need to be careful about. It's something we need to take it step by step, according to how the task force has already stated that we needed to take step by step. And those are the steps we are already taking. And we need to caution Nigerians and ensure that Nigerians understand the fact that COVID-19 is a disease and is spread in this fashion where it's going to be spread. And obviously, we need to keep to the guidelines. And if we don't keep to the guidelines, then obviously we'll have a big issue with that.
We have about 90 seconds on the clock to talk about the schools. The schools are also reopening. That was also equally controversial for some other reasons. Are you satisfied that they should reopen at this point, all things considered?
How are they ready? How are the schools ready? What are the sanitary conditions of the schools in all the schools we are talking about? What are the sanitary conditions? Are the schools ready to keep to the protocols? If these protocols are kept, then it's safe. But if these protocols are not kept, then we are going to be ready for the surge of COVID-19 cases. So we need to look at the readiness of these schools and these institutions. If these institutions are not ready, it's safe not to open. But if they are ready, and we are certain that they are ready, because we need to look at the sanitary conditions. Yes, there have been demonstrated researches that have said that there is no much effect in school children bringing down the virus to wherever they are going to affect with, but that's fine. But the issue now is, what are the teachers? What about other people that are visiting the schools? Are we ready to keep to these guidelines? If these guidelines are being kept, then it's safe.
All right, then. Thank you so very much, Dr. Iwan Orang. Thank you for your time today. Dr. Orang joined us from Port Harcourt in Rivers State. Thank you so very much. Outside our shores, the African Union is urging leaders on the continent to take aggressive and bold action in order to curb the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. This comes as the number of cases on the continent surpasses the 1 million mark. South Africa has the highest recorded number of total cases and reported deaths. The government there is investigating reports of suspected deals between government officials and businesses providing medical equipment as well as food aid parcels to the poor. Our South Africa Bureau Chief Betty Dibia has that update.
South Africa's Special Investigating Unit has laid criminal charges against 3 companies implicated in the Gauteng province COVID resources corruption scandal. Added to this, the Premier of Gauteng, Mr. David Makura, who briefed the province today, named 2 government officials who may have enabled corruption in the provincial health department, an issue the health minister finds very worrisome.
COVID-19 is a crisis that we must not ever take advantage of, and allow anyone to, try to profit out of a crisis of this nature. And therefore, we want to make sure that we work together with Treasury to streamline the procurement processes, to make sure that there's no price gouging, that the prices are stable so people don't exploit government.
Dr. Zwelim Kize, who has been touring KwaZulu-Natal province, which he described as the next likely epicenter of the epidemic in the country, has appealed to people to continue to adhere to the anti-COVID guidelines. He called for more support for frontline workers, many of whom have lost their own lives while caring for others.
The staff has got to be looked after. We have to make sure that our health workers don't continue to be infected, and certainly if they are, they shouldn't be infected from within the hospital setting. We do know that many of us can also be affected at the community level, but we need to make sure that the infection does not really cross from patient to staff, and from staff to patient, and from colleague to colleague. So that's what we want to emphasize upon.
The COVID-related death toll in South Africa is nearly 10,000, but recovery rate has risen to 71%. Meanwhile, the first batch of the 43-member WHO search team of experts sent to complement the national anti-COVID efforts arrived in the country on Thursday. The second batch is expected next week. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Let's talk to Betty now. She joins us via Skype from Johannesburg in South Africa. Good evening, Betty. Nice to see you. Trust you're keeping safe.
I'm here, laddie. Sure, I hope you are too.
Are you opening religious institutions in South Africa? Is the government there, the authorities there, opening religious institutions as well?
Well, on that, we're a bit ahead of Nigeria. Religious institutions were allowed from the beginning of level 3 lockdown. That's, I think, in June, early June. But the rule has been that you have not more than 50 people within these places, not more than 50. So many of the religious bodies are live streaming their activities for those who can't make it, and people in some cases have to book. But it's been open way ahead of Nigeria.
South Africa has more than 50% of the total number of the COVID-19 cases on the continent, which has now passed 1 million. Are there measures in place to try to reduce South Africa's share of the total and reduce the total number within the country itself?
The South African government is doing what every other government is doing, but just a quick update on the figures. You have the number of confirmed cases at 545,476. The death toll has risen to 9,908. But if you put it this way, South Africa has about 60 million people, roughly. If everybody had to have as many tests as South Africa, that's 31.8 million tests already done in the country and still counting. I don't think that picture of South Africa being hardest hit on the continent will be the same. They have almost 3.2 million tests already done. But the part of the measures that they're doing, apart from the visits to ensure compliance, you have they're changing from mass testing now to targeted testing to the hotspots like Soweto, where the Gauteng province premier, David Makura, mentioned today, is quite worried about high increasing numbers of confirmed cases in that area. There's also the issue of the good old 4-point measures: wash your hands, put on your face mask, social distancing, and the likes. So apart from the campaign, you have the issue of community mobilization to target where you have concentration of people, to ensure that people know their own responsibility apart from what government is doing. And again, lately, with all the COVID corruption, ensuring accountability by those entrusted with equipment, with contracts and the likes, to ensure that health workers are kept safe, people are treated properly, and everybody is generally safe. That's what they're doing. But the minister is going around, and we're hearing that probably with some of the problematic areas recording slightly lower, consistently lower numbers, not low, but reducing numbers. Probably they may loosen up all the regulations, not all, a few of the regulations, because we understand from the health minister who has been visiting KwaZulu-Natal that the National Command Council is asking for advice on what else to do to probably loosen up the measures and maybe allow some more economic activities in the country at this point.
While the authorities battle the issue of compliance and the consequent effect on numbers, there's also the issue of the other set of numbers, which is that allegedly taken away by people who were supposed to provide services and products for those who are suffering for COVID-19 and those who are treating them. Now you're talking about criminal charges. That means there's been progression.
Yes, the SIU, that's the Special Investigating Unit, has named some companies that may have, gone against what they promised to do. And the Gauteng Premier also named some officials today, 2 officials actually, who one of them has already resigned, but who may have been compliant, or complicit, I beg your pardon, in the irregularities with regard to contracts and all that, corruption generally. So there's a bit of progress, and people want to hear more because there's so many other angles to this. Spaces meant for, or shacks, living spaces meant for people with inflated contracts that was commissioned, or in an area like Limpopo, inflated contracts. The minister is asking questions, and they want people to answer for all these things, because it's unfortunate where money has been deployed to battle COVID, people are having a party with it.
Thank you so very much, Betty, for your reporting, and do continue to stay safe out there. Betty Tibia,
thank you very much.
Bureau Chief, joining us from there. A new model predicts that U.S. coronavirus deaths could hit 300,000 by December the 1st, but 70,000 lives could be saved if more Americans simply wore masks. Across the country, more than 160,000 people have died of COVID-19 so far.
Been confirmed to have had the new coronavirus, as health experts warn the peak of the pandemic is yet to hit the continent. The somber milestone reported by the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Friday comes more than 5 months after Egypt reported the continent's first confirmed cases of the virus on February the 14th. In South Korea, thousands of trainee doctors have begun a strike in Seoul to protest against the government plan to boost the number of medical students in the country, arguing it will be a poor use of additional funding for the sector. Trainee doctors held up placards with some reading, "Interns and residents are not slaves," and "Intern residents are the future of South Korea," during the protest in the capital city.
That's our COVID-19 update at this hour. You can take a closer look at some of the COVID-19 global numbers in real time by visiting our website, channelstv.com. There you get more updates and a better understanding of all you need to do to stay safe during this period. Of course, there are other stories in politics, business, and sports on that website, channelstv.com. Thank you for being with us. I'm Ladi Akari Doluade. Do have a good weekend ahead and stay safe.